Brain Scratchers, it's me, John Lorden, and I'm back with another mini-scratch, basically a short version of Brain Scratch, updating you on a previous story. And as you can see behind me, this is about the story of Sandra Bland, which is moving very rapidly, and there is just tons of rumor, innuendo, and footage and new facts which seem to be coming out all at the same time. I wanted to start with this picture in particular because there was a conspiracy story that came up when this picture was released that people believed that she was dead in the photograph. And that was my first exposure to the photograph, and when I looked at it, it didn't strike me that she was dead in the photo. Honestly, I didn't quite believe it. Apparently someone has gone and even taken this photo and did a Photoshop job on it and kind of closed her eyelids and added some bags under her eyes to make her look dead, which I think is horribly tasteless and doesn't help anybody in terms of this case on any front whatsoever. Just really, I was kind of appalled to see that. We now know, and this is a bit of a correction to the previous episode, I was incorrect when I wasn't sure about it taking so long for her to get her phone call on Monday. I assumed that was her first phone call that they were allowing, and that is not true. She apparently made at least 2 phone calls to a family friend. She also spoke to a family member, and so we have some communication that we can hear around this, and quite honestly, none of that communication is about someone that is, coming to the end of their life. She seems like she's looking for help. She doesn't understand the $5,000 bail amount that was set for her, which quite honestly I think is another point of scrutiny that we should be looking at, because that sounds kind of ridiculous for the driving infraction charge that she supposedly had. But we know that she was communicating with family members over the weekend where she was in the detention center, so she couldn't essentially have been dead in this photo, because this photo is taken at the start of that process. To even prove that further, the detention center has released more footage of her being booked in and basically showing where she walks over to take this photo, showing her in the original clothes she was wearing that we can match up to the traffic dash cam, and changing into her new orange jumpsuit that unfortunately is the last thing that she's going to wear. I'm also curious about that footage, because in that footage there's almost like a holding cell, I guess they put her in first, and the camera has a great shot of that entire cell. If only she would have stayed in that cell, we wouldn't be asking any of these questions. They would have footage specifically about what she did. And it just once again begs the question for me, where are the cameras? Why are they placed the way they are in that detention center? Can't they afford to have a camera on each cell? Outside of that, I've also learned that they are supposed to check in face-to-face at least every 60 minutes, and she went for about 1 hour and 55 minutes before they discovered her body. So if she would have got that other check-in, who knows what could have happened. The autopsy has been released, and I've reviewed the whole thing in full. What's of particular interest in it is it talks about some of the damage she seemed to have gone through when she was taken down to the ground. She got a lot of cuts on her arms. There is also some mention of 2 slices on her wrists, and I know there's kind of stories circling around now excuse me, about her being suicidal. As a matter of fact, there's a check-in form during the booking process, and she did make some note to them that she might have been suicidal about a year before when she lost a baby. Apparently there is also a computer record of this check-in form, and that does not include any notes about her being suicidal. So I don't know if we have a data entry error there, or if 2 different people handled her and heard 2 different stories at 2 different times, but we have a bit of a discrepancy in terms of the suicidal aspect. So as always, I'm going to have links down in the description box below. If you want to take a look at the autopsy for yourself and read through it, you can. The main thing to know is their conclusion, which is cause of death hanging, manner of death suicide, which isn't a surprise to any of us. I think we knew that it was going to come out with that. Also worth noting, I do believe an independent autopsy is going to be conducted, and that has yet to happen. Alright, so this is an article from CNN, and it talks about the fact that the jail and the authorities have been under cyber attack by Anonymous, who claimed that Sandra was dead in the mugshot, and that's part of the reason why they released this new video to prove that she actually wasn't dead. It also makes note about the several phone calls that she made. So once again, I watched this YouTuber called redsilverJ, and he talks about conspiracy theories from a very cynical point of view. But his input on this is he thinks that the dead mugshot thing is almost like counterintelligence, that was actually drummed up by authorities so that the conspiracy theorists would all rally behind that idea, and then they could discount the conspiracy theorists by proving them wrong. I don't know if what he's saying is totally true, but the steps of how this happened: mugshot released, public goes crazy with conspiracy theory, they shut it down with evidence a few days later, evidence that they had the few days prior. He might have a point there. So check out redsilverJ if you like that theory, and you might want to check him out anyway. He's very entertaining in terms of how he gets this information out, and he does have a very unique perspective. Another story that's kicking around is she was a marijuana user, and apparently she was high while she was in jail. There's even stories about the fact that it seems like she got high while she was in jail. I don't know how the hell that could have happened when she had no cellmates. I don't believe she's had any visits. We haven't seen any of that on record. They did their proper booking process, in which I'm pretty sure they searched her. So it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. However, they did run a toxicology report, and apparently she at least was a marijuana user. And now they're trying to compare the level of THC that they found in her blood and see, was she potentially high at the time of the arrest. I gotta tell you, and this is an article from Forbes that does a pretty good analysis on this. The Sandra Bland that you see in the footage of her being pulled over does not seem like someone that is stoned to me. The Forbes article goes on to discuss THC levels, and basically, if she's a regular user, the level that they found in her system could be her at a sober point. It basically, the THC stays resonant, it attaches to your fat molecules, and then as someone dies, it gets re-released from the fat molecules back into their bloodstream. So the level that they've noted, they're not even sure, that could be peaked a little bit because of the fact that she had just deceased. But even if it is a peak, that's still within normal range for a regular user to be seen as sober, according to this article. You might want to give this article a read. There's a lot of information in it, and some of it's kind of subjective, so I want to make sure that you take it in on your own. The link for it is down below. Also, another piece of information that came out is from a fellow inmate. This is from usatoday.com, and they're referencing CNN. Fellow inmate Alexandria Pyle told CNN Bland had been despondent inside her cell and no one was returning her phone calls. Quote, she wasn't eating, and when I did talk to her, she was just crying, and all I could say was they could not hold you forever, said Pyle. So this is the first piece of information that we've gotten that supports that she might have been in some type of depressive state. And literally, it's kind of the only information. Outside of the notations of suicide that I mentioned earlier, of her potentially feeling suicidal a year before, none of her family is buying the suicide story. Her mother is very strongly standing against it. Her friends, all the comments I'm seeing is that aspect of this is seriously unbelievable. This is the first piece of information that kind of could put that story together. However, it's coming from an inmate, and as I think I mentioned in the last video, if you're an inmate in a prison that you think might have done something to harm another inmate, are you going to really stand up and tell the truth, or could you potentially be compromised? I don't know how much value to really put into this statement, but I did think it was worth noting. And finally, YouTuber TWoN, TWoN, has done a very cool video. It's only 6 minutes, and it essentially points out some of the things that I talked about when I did my last video review and I went through the police footage. Except TWoN went back and he actually took the phone call that that Officer Encenia is making to his reporting officer, and then he matched up the comments to the actual footage of the traffic stop. And what you can see in this video, it's really well done, is he's basically kind of bullshitting his story to his commanding officer to make it seem like there was much more of a struggle happening than there actually was, that he was trying to calm her down when honestly he wasn't. I was shocked that there's even points, after watching this again, there's even points where Sandra is saying, "Do you want me to sit down now?" and he's saying no. And then later he's throwing her to the ground, which I think is ridiculous. And if you read the autopsy, you'll understand, you know, she definitely got cut up quite a bit from that. Also, a question I did raise on the last video is kind of echoed by this. At one point he tells his commanding officer that she's probably going to want an emergency medical services unit. And I don't know if that ever occurred or if they took her straight to the jail, and I still haven't been able to find any information about that. So if you have any info on that, please drop us a link in the comments below. And as always, I'm looking forward to your thoughts on these new developments. And please, once again, I got to say thank you to all of you miniScratch fans out there. I've had so many that have shot me updates on this case. I've had a lot of people with very well constructed comments and posts about what's going on here, about America, about racial issues, racial tensions. This case is important. Every case that this happens in is important. And if nothing else, I'm at least, it's hard to say the word happy, but it at least warms me inside to know that there are so many more eyes on this than there used to be. And it kind of scares me inside to think about how long this could have been going on, and we didn't know about it because we didn't have cell phone videos, we didn't have dash cams, and we didn't have cameras on actual officers. You know, this has probably been going on in this way for a really, really long time, and that kind of makes me sick. But I feel like we're heading towards that ending with all of the press, all the little guys like me, everyone really drawing their focus on these events and talking about it and giving all of you a forum to do the same. And my heart really goes out to Sandra's family. The pain around this is palpable. I mean, you can feel it in every article you read about this case. In either way, if she killed herself or not, this is a tragedy because honestly, the traffic stop shouldn't have gone down how it did. She shouldn't have been in the situation that she was put in. So it's just sad on all fronts. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to this edition of miniScratch, and I will catch you on the next show on Geek and Dorks, a YouTube channel. Take care.